and welcome to a new episode of the Raising Musos podcast. My name is Eliza and I'm the director of a music school in Joondalup, Western Australia called Music Makers Academy. We offer music lessons for piano, harp, guitar, violin, flute and voice. Hopefully I haven't left anything out. And in this podcast I provide advice and insights to basically help parents who have children learning music. And today I have a guest on my podcast again, and it's Jensen, who was here last week. We are continuing on with our flute series. And so in last week's episode, if you haven't listened to it, just make sure you probably listen to that one first. But we just talked about some basic things about learning flute and flute lessons. So we try to answer very common questions that parents have about learning the flute. And so today we're gonna continue our discussion, but really hone in on flute techniques and how to develop skills as a flute player. And of course I'm very happy that I have Jensen here because I know absolutely nothing about the flute. I just know that it sounds really nice and dreamy. Most of the time anyway. I'm sure there's times when the flute doesn't sound as nice.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Amazing. So if you have any questions about flute or anything like that, please leave a comment. You can just message me on Instagram. My handle is Music Makers Academy. You can leave a comment on YouTube. Or our email is hello@musicmakersacademy.com.au. If you're listening to this and it's June, we are actually offering free trial lessons for flute, so get in touch if you want to book one, either for yourself or for your child. Woohoo! Okay, so we're going to get started with questions. And so this episode, as I said, it's about the skills and techniques as a flute player. So Jensen, what are some techniques that are specific to flute?
So some techniques that are specific to flute include vibrato, which is making waves with your sound by changing the tuning. You can also do this on string instruments, but this is one of the few wind instruments that you can do it most effectively on. You can do it on oboe as well and clarinet, but I would say it's a bit harder. You can also do double tonguing, which is one of the easy instruments that you can do double tonguing on, which is when if you've got like a really fast tongued excerpt or piece of music and you can't single tongue it fast enough, then you can double tongue, which is instead of going ta 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 ta, you go taka 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 ta.
So is it tonguing because you actually like use your tongue?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And you can also triple tongue when instead of having groups of 2, you have groups of 3. So instead of ta 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 ta, you go taka 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 taka. Yeah.
I think they sounded different this time.
But yeah, it's just accentuating the different
groups. Yeah.
And then flutter tonguing as well, which is when sometimes in jazz music you'll have flutter tonguing. I just performed in West Australian Youth Orchestra for West Side Story, and I had to do quite a lot of flutter tonguing in that. And that is either when you roll your tongue while playing. I can't roll my tongue, so I have to do this. I have to like growl. I have to go while I play. Yeah. And then harmonics. Most instruments, I'm pretty sure a lot of instruments can do harmonics. But yeah, you can do them on flute as well, and multiphonics as well, which is definitely, it's like an extended technique. It's not really used at all, but yeah.
Cool.
So I'll demonstrate a few of those.
Yeah, please. So the first one you said was vibrato.
Vibrato. So you can hear there the different waves of sound I was making at the different speeds and the different widths. Then We've also got
True.
double tonguing. Triple tonguing. And then flutter tonguing. And
so cool.
harmonics. So harmonics is basically on flute. You'll play one note. You won't move your fingers at all, but you'll just change how you're blowing. So the way you change how you're blowing, you change where the air is directed in the hole. You can change the size of the cavity in your mouth, where your tongue is, the amount of air you're using, the speed of the air, and the width of your mouth. So I'll play a low D, and then I'll play the harmonics above that. So those are different harmonics above low D.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, we can also do harmonics on the harp by just changing how we play the notes. So that's interesting. So if we talk about those like techniques, like is it written in the music, like which one you have to use, or is it sort of like you sort of have to figure it out yourself?
Harmonics will be written in. It'll have like a little circle above the note.
Oh yeah, same as harp.
But it's not used that often. Flutter tonguing, it will just have like 3 dashes like through the note.
Yeah.
Double tonguing is like you'll have to figure that out. Sometimes there'll be 2 dashes through the note, but usually you'll have to figure it out.
And you said it's like it's about like if the music is fast. So then like if there's double tonguing and triple tonguing, is that like just single tonguing? Is there such a thing?
Single tonguing, yeah, you can.
So is that just like how you just normally blow a note?
Yeah, so single tonguing is ta 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 ta.
Is that like something you do with like your mouth?
Yeah,
like...
so your tongue goes on the roof of your mouth, but like behind your teeth.
Oh yeah.
Just behind your teeth.
Do you have to?
But it doesn't touch your teeth.
Oh okay.
Like it goes. And you prepare the air behind it.
Oh okay.
You prepare your abs, tense your abs, prepare the air behind it, and then.
So that's single tonguing.
But if I don't use my tongue, it just like goes wah.
Oh, like the attack is a little bit different.
Yeah. So if you're starting like a soft, slow piece, you probably wouldn't use a big tongue movement. Yeah.
Oh. Wow, that's really interesting. And so maybe you can also demonstrate the difference between legato and staccato. Obviously, these are not like specific to flute, but maybe some people would be interested in hearing like what does legato sound on flute sounds like.
Yeah. So legato is very hard on instruments. It's a technique that you learn later on, and it's really just connecting the notes, having the instruments separate to you and just separate to the air, and really just connecting the notes, making sure there's no bumps in between the notes. That was legato, and then staccato is when you play notes short and detached like this.
Cool. So you said legato is very hard to play on the flute. So is it easier to play staccato?
Well, legato, you can learn legato. It's just very hard to master. Like just getting rid of all the little bumps between the notes and really connecting all the notes. Like say if you've got a big leap, like I'll play it separated. And then legato, you have to really connect them.
Yeah, wow. That's so interesting.
So yeah, no gaps in between the notes.
Yeah. Wow. Mind blown. That's really cool. And so I'm just curious now, but like with the flutter tonguing, because that sounded really cool. Like, is it used like very often, or are they more like just occasionally, just to make the music sound interesting?
It would mostly be used in jazz music.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not used that often.
Oh, cool. And we'll have this question in a future episode, but I'm just curious, like, how common is flute in jazz music?
Yeah, jazz flute is like an actual instrument. You can learn it.
Oh, jazz
Yeah.
flute.
I haven't learned it though.
So is it like a completely different
No,
flute?
it's the flute, but it's just the technique and the way you play the flute is like different.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh. Wow. I know so little. Oh well, it's nice to learn. It is nice to learn.
Mm.
And so of all the like techniques you just demonstrated, like which one would you like teach first to a student?
Probably just tonguing, yeah. Just
Mhm.
preparing the air behind your tongue and being able to, get a note out.
Yeah.
Because that's how you start a note with the tongue.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. And what about? Can you explain like what the keys actually do? Because I don't even know what the keys do on the flute.
Okay. So placing your fingers, you've got the thumb key, and you alternate between these two depending on whether you want a B flat. So if you want a B flat, you play this one, B natural this one, or you can use a long B flat, which is that and this and this. But yeah, beginner flutes will usually not be open whole like this. As you can see, there's holes in my keys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you've got the lower ends, which will use these. Most notes will also need this key. And as you lift more fingers, the notes go up, but then you have to blow up a harmonic to then keep going.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite complex.
It is a bit complex, but you'll get your head around it.
And so like every single note has a different. You need to press different keys for it. Is that how it works? Like to play a C, you have to press certain keys, and then to play like an E, is that a completely different key or?
Well, you've got a low C and then you've got an E. You just raise a couple fingers. But then this fingering for E is also the fingering for E for the next octave.
Oh, okay. So it's like the fingering stays the same.
Yeah, it's just the mouth and the way you blow in the instrument changes. Mm.
Cool. And do you want to tell us what? Okay, this is that fancy word. I think it's a French word because I can say it easily. Embouchure.
Embouchure, yes.
Embouchure, yeah. How do you say it?
Embouchure.
Okay, that's probably how most people would know it. Like what is that? And like why is it important for flute?
So embouchure is the shape of your mouth and how it interacts with the instrument. So your embouchure for the flute, you need your lips to be extremely relaxed, not tight at all. You need no tension, and this is so that you can produce a really nice sound. If you have a tight embouchure, that'll affect the whole instrument, and you won't be able to produce a very good sound. So I can demonstrate that. I'll use a very tight embouchure. I haven't tested this. Yeah, it's very crushed. Then if you're nice and relaxed,
doing a bit of vibrato there.
Yes.
And so if someone like has a tight mouth, like what can they do to like not do that anymore?
So I sometimes just put my hands on my face and pull my muscles down just to really relax them. I would point out what part of their mouth is creating tension, and I would show them how to improve it, and fixing that, just really relaxing everything. It's not just the mouth that affects the sounds, the whole posture. Like if you're hunched over, you won't be able to make a good sound. You have to be really open up your lungs, stir them up, so you can really produce that nice sound.
Interesting. Because what I was teaching piano and harp, I noticed also most of the tension is always like in the wrist for some reason, like or forearms as well. But I can see because it's just like moving as one unit rather than like being flowing, and so that's how I can tell that there's tension there. But it can be hard for students to like even know that they don't notice that they have tension. So it's tricky. So would you say like the mouth is where most of the tension is, or can they also get tension in the arms?
You also definitely get tension in your shoulders and your arms, your elbows, your wrist, and your fingers. They need to be so relaxed because otherwise you can get injuries.
Yeah. Yeah, similar to piano, similar to all instruments. And what was my next question that I just forgot? It was a good one. Let me just see. Yeah, tension. Oh yeah, that is what I was going to ask. Like, does the shape of your mouth like change the tuning or the pitch? Like, say you want to go from a C to an E, can you like change your mouth and then you can change the pitch, or is that just like you only change the pitch from the keys?
You can change the like tuning.
So if you smile, you just go sharp.
I'm changing a lot in my mouth. So yeah, if I blow more down into the flute and lower, it'll produce a flatter sound. But if I blow more up, it'll produce a sharper sound. And if I make the cavity inside of my mouth smaller, it'll produce a sharper sound. If I make it larger, it'll produce a more flat sound. So it's all these different things, they all contribute. Because tuning on the flute can be very difficult, and especially on the piccolo. And tuning like high register notes on the flute, you really need to focus on the intonation up there.
Which actually brings me to my next question. Like, how do you check the tuning? Like, when you practice, do you have like an app that tells you if you're in tune, or do you just play and then every once a couple of notes you just like check on the piano? Like, how do you check the tuning on the flute?
I play with a tune on my stand usually. But you every time you set up, you need a tune and do an initial tune. And yeah, if any notes are sharp or flat, then you need to change the way that you're blowing on that note.
Interesting. And I think like the first time I met you, you showed me like how also sometimes if you assemble like the pieces like a certain way, it can affect the tuning. Like, is there something about the positioning of the pieces that affects the tuning?
Yeah, so if I pull my head joint out that much, I'll play an A, it'll sound really, really flat. But if I push it in all the way and now play an A, it'll be really sharp. I just played the same note.
Oh wow. Yeah,
pulled my head joint in different amount. That was like more than a tone. Yeah.
Oh cool. Okay, so then like the first thing you do when you practice, you put the flute together, then you play like the A note, and then you check on your app what it says, and then you move
Then you adjust the head joints.
Oh. Okay, and so that's how you know like the flute is in tune, and then any like tuning mistakes after that is based more like on your technique and like your embouchure.
Yeah, so just blowing the A is just a general tune, and then it's like other notes will be out of tune, you just need to fix them.
Yeah.
But you can't just change the head joint for every single note.
Yeah, that's probably not very efficient.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay, so that's a pretty good discussion on the different techniques. So now we're going to talk about maybe the challenging aspects of playing the flute. So maybe just what would you say are like the top 3 common issues with playing, like common issues people might face with learning flute?
Well, definitely playing in tune. Definitely quite difficult, and especially on the piccolo, very difficult. Also fast finger coordination, having really nice flowing fingers for faster sections in music. And that just comes with slow practice. Also, holding the flute with proper posture. I still haven't mastered it. Like it takes
Discipline,
a
awareness.
lot of discipline.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so if we go back to the first one, we sort of talked about tuning. So how would you help a student, or like how could a parent like help their child with the tuning when they play? Like, would you say a parent should maybe check or just have the app there on the stand as the child practices?
If the parent doesn't really have a musical ear, I would say have the phone or your app or just a tuner on the stand so that you can help your child. And then I would tell the student different ways to make notes sharper or flatter. And to make notes sharper, you just blow up more or make the cavity inside of your mouth smaller. And to make notes flatter, you would probably blow down more, relax more, make the cavity in your mouth a bit bigger. Just reminding the student that.
Oh, and sorry, because I'm just curious how it works. So when you're practicing and you've got the app there, like, what if it's like a fast song? Like, how can you check the tuning of every single note? Or do you just have to always practice like so slow so that you can check the tuning of every single note?
Well, if you're unsure of the tuning, then I would play it slowly just to make sure everything's in tune. And then once you really develop your oral skills, you'd be able to tell more easily.
Yeah. So I suppose that's a tricky part about learning flute. Maybe it's also like the oral aspect of it, like developing the ear. Because obviously on piano,
it's all in tune.
Yeah, like you can't tune the piano, like, so it gets tuned professionally. So like piano students don't have to worry about that, like about developing their ear. They can just tell when they play the wrong note. But if a note is out of tune, they might not really be able to tell as well as like a flute player who's developed that kind of precision to pitch. So that's interesting. And so what was the second one we talked about? We had the playing in tune.
Finger coordination.
Oh, finger coordination.
So learning fast runs or tricky fast passages. That's definitely something very challenging because flute often does have a lot of like ornamenty parts in orchestras, and just that comes with slow practice.
And are there like finger exercises you
Yes.
can do like away from the flute?
Oh no. You can probably
piano.
Yeah.
Piano is an exercise you can do to improve flute.
I would just stick to lots of fingering exercises on the flute. There are a lot out there and they're all very helpful.
And so are there like any flute fingering exercises that like you can just do without even like making a sound, like just playing the different keys maybe like really fast, or
I don't think it would be as beneficial.
Okay.
Because with every note you have to change the way you blow. So you also have to match the way you change your fingers with the way you blow.
And okay, I just had another question randomly pop in my head. Does it like make a difference if you like where your finger is on the key, like if you're on the edge or like whether it's like right in the middle? Does that impact the sound?
With an open hole flute.
Or with just with any key?
Well, with a closed hole flute, you won't have these holes, so it won't really matter where your fingers are. But with an open hole flute, you need to cover the holes.
So that makes it harder.
Yes, but
so why would you make it harder?
An open hole flute, more professional models are all open hole, and you can do some different techniques on an open hole flute that you can't do on a closed hole flute. I don't know them off the top of my head, but I know you can.
Okay. So it's sort of like a more advanced instrument.
Yes, it is.
So beginners would start with the closed.
Definitely.
Wow. This is like 1 year's worth of like education for me in like a 30-minute conversation. Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, so my next question for you is like, tone versus technique. Like, which one is more important?
They're both obviously very important, but I personally think technique is more important. I'm crazy about technique, and I love practicing my technique. But you can't play if you don't have a good technique. Like technique is the foundation for everything. Tone is also very important because that's just producing a really nice luscious sound. But to be able to show off your nice tone, you have good technique.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I would say it's sort of the same, again, for across all instruments. If you have poor technique, and maybe we'll just quickly define what those words mean. Technique, how do we define technique? Is just how you do it, I suppose. It's how you play your instrument, what movements you use.
Yeah, and making sure everything you're doing is right.
Yeah. Whereas tone refers to like the type of sound you can produce on the instrument. And yeah, so if your technique's pretty bad, your tone is very likely to be bad. But that said, I've also often found that this is more for people who've got like a trained ear, but if you notice that your tone is bad and you also know what to do to make it better, then like you can change your technique based on the tone that you hear, if that makes sense. So like sometimes the tone, like rather than like technique produces tone, sometimes like the tone produces the technique, if that makes sense. Does that make sense to you?
I get technique produces tone, but I don't really get tone produces technique.
Oh, okay, yeah, maybe it's just me. I think because I don't remember like how I was taught piano, but I know that I can get a good tone, and so I feel like by trying different tones, that's how I develop the technique that I have.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
So I don't know if the same can be with flute, but I suppose if flute, is it like very easy to get all sorts of different tones out of it?
No, it's quite difficult because it's just getting different characters of sound on your flute is quite difficult, and it's something you'll learn quite late.
Yeah.
In your flute journey. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I just have a couple more questions. Okay, can the flute play chords? Okay, and we'll define chords as more than one note. Actually, most chords have at least 3 notes.
So flutes cannot play chords. They are monophonic instruments, which means they can only play one note at a time. However, there's an extended technique called playing multiphonics, where you can play multiple notes at once.
That sounds complicated.
But it's like no one ever like asks for it because it's just why.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. And what about? Okay, can flute play the music of another instrument like the violin? So can flute play violin music?
Yeah, definitely. I played the Prokofiev flute sonata in my exam last year, and that was also a violin piece. So yeah, definitely. Sometimes like if it was a lower instrument like a cello, you would probably have to transpose it up an octave. But yeah, it can play other instrument music.
Nice. And we also talked about this in the first episode, with like the ensembles that you can join as a flute player. And so what did we say? We had the flute ensemble.
Yeah, flute choirs, symphony orchestras, school concert bands, wind bands, chamber ensembles, and even jazz ensembles.
Oh yeah, and actually tell us about like the chamber ensembles. Like, what are some examples of chamber ensembles we could be a part of?
Well, obviously a flute choir, some quartets or quintets, octets. Yeah, just all those.
Flute and harp actually is a very popular combination. What else? Like, yeah, flute and any sort of instrument that can do accompaniment.
Mhm.
Cool. And so what would be the minimum grade you would think you would have to be to join an ensemble? So like with like a school band.
Well, if you can read music and play basic rhythms, stay in tune, then I'd say you're probably ready. Because there are obviously a lot of beginner ensembles out there, and probably at your child's school there would be a beginner ensemble that would definitely welcome new players. And yeah, more advanced ensembles require definitely a higher skill.
Cool. And so often to join an ensemble, especially the more advanced ones, there's something called an audition. So can you tell us maybe like what's an audition? Like what do you have to do for one?
So I'm currently auditioning for the Australian Youth Orchestra, and for that I have to perform a list of excerpts, orchestral excerpts, and also a piece of my own choice. And auditions can either be recorded or they can be live, or you have a blind audition. But yeah, they're a process that you'll have to go through to get into an ensemble or even get a job in the music industry.
Yes.
Basically, yeah, there'll be a panel and they'll just judge your playing.
So that's what you can look forward to.
Yes.
Great, awesome. Well, anything else you want to add about flute techniques or anything? Because I think that wraps up our discussion pretty well.
I think that's good.
Cool, amazing. Well, that was an interesting. That was a really good episode. I really like that. Thanks for coming along. So we still have 2 more episodes in this mini series about flute. So make sure you just come back next week for the next one, which is all about. This time we're going to talk about like the facts about the flute, and how we produce a sound on the flute and what's it made of, blah blah blah. So make sure to tune in next week, and we'll speak to you then.